Okay, so the next lesson is looking at index laws, which means what happens when we multiply and divide numbers with powers. So there are three rules that we need to know. The first is that when we multiply two numbers with the same base, we add together their indices or powers. So if I've got two numbers, but both the same, but with two different powers, and I'm multiplying them, then I just add the powers together. It's worth just taking a second to remind ourselves of why. So let's say I've got, for example, 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 4. Now, if I wrote that out in full, let's just remember what 2 to the power of 3 means. It means 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times. 2 to the power of 4 means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times. So if we think, what have we got in total? Well, we've got 3 times here and 4 times here. So in total, we would have 2 to the power of 7. Be careful with our questions, because if it says write your answer in index form, it wants it like this. If it said evaluate, it would mean it wanted you to work out what number that was, which would be 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16, times 2 again, which is 32, times 2 again, which is 64, times 2 again, which is 128. So normally, a question will say, give your answer in index form, in which case you'd give it like this. If it says evaluate, you'd need to give your answer as a number. Similarly, let's say if I had 2 to the power of 5 divided by 2 to the power of 2. I'm going to write that as a fraction. It would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And on the bottom, I'd have 2 times 2. And what we could simply do is cancel. I've got 5 2's on top, 2 2's on the bottom. I can cancel out the 2's in common. Those are our common factors. Again, I've got a common factor, and it would leave me with 2 to the power of 3, which is where we get our second rule from. When we're dividing, we subtract the powers. The last rule, let's say I've got 2 squared and it wants me to cube it. This is the one that people often make mistakes about. So let's just think what that means. That means multiply 2 squared by itself 3 times. It's 2 squared times 2 squared times 2 squared. If we go back to our addition rule, that tells me to add my powers. 2, 4, 6. It's 2 to the power of 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is 2 to the power of 6. So when I've got to the power of a power, I multiply them together. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So now that we understand our rules, we can do some questions. So we've got 2 worked examples here. Let's look at the first one. So on the top, I've got a multiplication. I need to remember that's adding my powers. So that's going to give me 2 plus 8 would give me 3 to the power of 10. Now, on the bottom, I don't have a power on a 3. It's 3 on its own, times 3 to the power of 11. Well, I've got just one 3 there. It's not squared, so I'm just going to write in, just to give myself, just to jog my memory, that if there's no power at all, that's a power of 1. So I've got, down here, I'm going to have dividing by 3 to the power of 12, because I've added those powers together. So my next step is to subtract the powers. It's going to give me 10 take away 12, 3 to the power of 10 take away 12. 10 take away 12 is minus 2, so it gives me an answer of 3 to the power of minus 2. When I look at my second example, I've got 8 cubes squared. Now remember, here I've got power of a power, so I'm going to multiply those two together, my 3 and my 2. It's going to give me 8 to the power of 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Again here, I've got to the power of 1, which I'm going to write in now. 4 add 1 gives me 8 to the power of 5. I'm now going to have to take away my powers. 8 to the power of 6 take away 5, which is 8 to the power of 1. And we don't normally write in our powers of 1, that's just 8. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video while you write down the worked examples, and then we can have a go at some questions. So here are 6 questions for you, Questions 1 and 2 are fairly standard. Be careful when you get to question 3. It's exactly the same thing, but you don't know what number this is, so you just treat it as a letter A, and do exactly the same thing using your power rules, but with A, and here with B, and here with A as well. Alright, can you pause the video, have a go at these 6 questions, and then we can have a look at some examples, some answers. Okay, so let's look at our answers now. So for the first one, you should have got 5 to the power of 9 divided by 5 to the power of 4. Taking away the powers gave you 5 to the power of 5. Here you're adding your powers to give you 2 to the 11. Here you've got power of a power, so you're multiplying them to give you 2 to the power of 9. Subtracting those gives you 2 squared. For the next one, adding your powers gives you 8 to the power of 9. Power of a power gives you 8 to the power of 8. 9 take away 8 gives you 8 to the power of 1, which we just write as A. 4 is probably the most complicated question on here. Adding the powers gives you b to the power of 10 divided by b squared. You're then going to subtract the powers, which gives you b to the power of 8. You're squaring this, so you're going to multiply your powers to give you b to the power of 16. For question 5, you've got power of a power, which gives you 8 to the power of 6 and 8 to the power of 6. And on the bottom, you're adding the powers to give you 8 to the power of 12. So you've got 8 to the power of 12 divided by 8 to the power of 12. Now, using our rule of subtraction, 12 take away 12 gives you 0, so it gives you 8 to the power of 0. But we also know that anything divided by itself gives you 1. And this is our demonstration that any number that you've got to the power of 0 is always equal to 1. Last question, you add together the powers to give you 3 to the power of 15. Power of a power gives you 3 to the power of 14. Subtracting gives you 3 to the power of 1, which we normally just write as 3. Give yourself a mark out of 6. Once you've done that, if you've got any difficulties, please go on and have a look at Hegarty clips 105, 106 and 107. Well done.